Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Edge of Comfort podcast, where we explore the adventures, perspectives, and philosophies of world travelers. I'm your host, Lee Thornquist, and thank you for listening. To all my fellow millennials out there listening to this, turns out that we are changing some of the reasons and ways people are traveling the world, and also some of the companies out there who are trying to tailor to us and help us along our journeys to see the world. One of these companies is called Under30Experiences, and on today's episode, we are joined by Lindsey Dukes, who has a really fascinating kind of full circle story about her experiences first traveling with this company to now working with them and leading her own experiences. After leaving a stable corporate job she'd been in for 8 years, Lindsey started exploring her other interests and passions in a way to build her life around them. What a crazy idea! One of these was traveling, and she started some major international traveling by going on trips with Under30Experiences to Bali, Indonesia, and Iceland. We get into all the details of what these trips were like and some of the logistical stuff of it, but also talk about why she prefers traveling in a group, which I must say is a fresh perspective since we've had a lot of people on the podcast who are big advocates of solo traveling, but also kind of what impact that these experiences had on her life and the trajectory of it. One of these being, well, she went from being a traveler on this company's trips to now being an experience leader, along with doing marketing and building the under-30s community around the world. So like I said, kind of a cool full circle story. But other than talking about this form of traveling and some of her work she does with Under30, we get into a whole lot of other deep topics. You'll find out pretty quickly that Lindsey is quite a spiritual person and what being spiritual actually means to her instead of what most people might associate with that word. We also explore a lot about questioning your beliefs and challenging your ideas and challenging kind of the way you're living your life and to possibly pursue what actually gives you meaning, and also how traveling can kind of force you to do this. So it turns out that traveling can actually be very dangerous, but in the best possible way. But really, Lindsey is an open book and shares some incredible wisdom and thoughts and insights based on some of her experiences. Our conversation hits a lot of different topics. I think there's something for everyone in here, so keep an open mind and buckle up. And if you want to find full show notes and links to some of the things we reference in our conversation, you can do so at edgeofcomfort.com/EOCP17. That's the number 17. Also, if you've enjoyed the podcast, whether this is your first episode or 17th episode, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts through the app or iTunes on your computer. I really enjoy reading your feedback, and it also helps new people discover these conversations. Just search for Edge of Comfort in the podcast section, click on ratings and reviews, and then write a review. If you need a full step-by-step guide with some pictures and everything on how to do this, go to edgeofcomfort.com/podcast-review. Finally, make sure to stick around at the end of the episode for the question of the episode. Thank you so much to Lindsey for being an open book and sharing so much about her life. Thank you for listening, and let's go.
Good morning.
What's all the commotion?
Wow.
Are banana fish big?
Same, but different.
If I can't scuba, then what's this all been about?
Welcome to the Edge of Comfort podcast with your host, Lee Thornquist. So welcome, Lindsey, to the podcast. So excited to have you on today, and thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We were talking a little bit before we started recording, and you're based in Austin, Texas, and where I am a 1 year native from there.
That's so great.
How are you from there? Have you lived there for a while?
So I have been in the Austin area for about 10 years. I've tried to leave twice, not because I didn't love Austin, but I felt like I just needed to go live somewhere else. And both times the universe has just completely intervened and been like, no, you shall stay. And so I stayed. It's turned out to be pretty cool.
So you tried to leave twice and were not able to.
Yeah. And both times it was to go to Denver. The most recent time was like 2 years ago, actually not too long before I started getting involved with Under 30 from a business standpoint. But I was doing some contract work for this startup company and was moving to Denver to start a full-time position with them. And like 2 weeks before I was supposed to move, like things are in boxes, moving trucks are ready to come. And they were like, oh, we don't think we're going to be able to afford the position after all. I was like, cool, I'll just stay here then. Which turned out to be just like a blessing in disguise because here I am now doing this cool thing.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to talk a lot about Under 30 Experiences. And also if we refer to it, do you always say U30X instead of saying out the long name?
It depends, so much so that I didn't even realize that that's what I did. So yes, Under 30 Experiences is U30X.
Yeah, okay. So if we reference it like that anymore, the listener, you now know what we're talking about.
Yes, thank you.
So you started traveling with them, and now you're working for them. It looks like you've led some experiences and doing some other work as well. Like, how does that feel to kind of see that come full circle from you used to be traveling with them just as a guest, and now you're leading people on their travels?
It's so cool. It's truly a dream come true. So I originally traveled with them to Bali in July 2016. And that trip, I mean, when I say it was a game changer for me, I'm not just saying that as a loaded statement. It literally shook up a lot of things for me. And I ended up going to Iceland with them the following October, and then got back from that trip and was like, God, like all I want to do is travel and take pictures and write and just like connect with people. And I said that out loud, and then I laughed. I was like, that's not a freaking job. Like that's not a thing. But that's what I want to do. And so here we are about 2 years later, and that's exactly what I've done for the last year and a half with them. So, and it took a very roundabout way of getting there. So I actually had started my own fitness company and was trying to figure out just how to design my life around being able to be remote and travel. So I decided I was going to run fitness retreats and got in contact with another guy at Under 30 Experiences that was starting kind of like a little pilot program called Custom Experiences. So they run logistics for yoga retreats and fitness retreats and things like that. And so got in touch with him, and they were running the logistics for my fitness retreats. And he was kind of like, man, I would love to bring you on full time, but all we're hiring for right now is the under 30 side. And it's a marketing position. I don't know if that's in your wheelhouse. And I just started to laugh on the phone. He was like, what? I was like, man, that's actually what my degree is in. That's literally what I went to school for. So it happened in a very roundabout way. It's not like I had this goal and was working every day toward it. It was more like I threw it out there to the universe and followed the little breadcrumbs. And here I am.
So what were you doing before you started this fitness company and started working for Under 30?
Oh man. Okay. So I was in corporate America for a little over 8 years. So I worked for Liberty Mutual Insurance. So I was in sales for them for the first 3 years. I was straight out of college, and then was in field development with them, which I got to do some traveling, nothing international, but Hawaii was one of my territories. So I wasn't about to like quit that job, even though I was not even almost passionate about it. Um, so I knew that's not what I wanted to be doing forever. And I was kind of getting to a point where I was just like questioning everything in my life. To get even into more detail, I was actually married at the time. Like had literally followed every single box on that checklist of life post college to the T. Then yeah, found myself on the kitchen floor one day, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, is this really what life is? Is this what I want? And no offense to anyone who has followed that same path. I just knew it was not where I was supposed to be at the time. And so, ended up leaving all of those things one by one over the course of a couple of years, and was still doing some contract work, like business development work for a couple of companies. One of those being the one that I referenced when I was going to move to Denver, before I started to get into the whole fitness thing. So yeah.
When you're in like that position and you know like this is not what I want to be doing, and is that just something like deeply internal that you feel like split from what you actually should be doing, like deep down? Like how when those emotions first started arising, like was it gradual? Was it kind of all at once? Like how did you start to realize that and then get the courage to kind of get away from this typical checkbox life that you were living?
It was, I would say, gradual, and then just kind of all culminated in this one really intense moment. But I think I knew deep down for quite some time. It's really hard to justify those things especially in the Western society, where we are constantly having to like prove ourselves and show what we're doing, and that like, look how much I've done, look how successful I am at this or that. And so just knowing that like I needed and I was supposed to be doing something different, but still being very much wrapped up in this world, where I knew I was going to have to justify things to people. It just took a while for me to just really accept the underlying truth and all of those things, like my own truth. So it I felt that way for a while, but then when I said I found myself sitting on the kitchen floor, just like in tears, that's a real thing that happened. It was just like this one really intense moment. I was like, oh shit, what am I doing? And I knew that I either needed to start making changes, or I could like smoke a bowl and go to bed and forget that I ever had that conversation with myself. It took some time, but slowly I let go of all the things. And it's funny, like I said, it was going to be super hard for me to leave that job. Again, wasn't really passionate about it, but I was going to Hawaii every 3 weeks, man. Like, how do you leave that? And so it's funny going back to like putting things out there to the universe. I know it sounds hippie and whatever, but it's so real, I swear. Because I kind of put it out there. That's not what I wanted to be doing. And I was actually a part-time musician at the time, as well as singer-songwriter. And I was playing in Hawaii one night. And I had some people that were like, why aren't you doing this full time? And I was like, oh man, I'd be stupid to leave my job. So lo and behold, if the next morning I didn't get a call with like 350 other people, letting us know that they were condensing our 3 departments into one, and they'd be creating 28 new positions that we could all interview for. And I knew that the Texas position would have been mine. But I also kind of felt like this was my chance. This is my chance to break free, with a little bit of padding behind it, because they were going to offer me severance if I didn't interview. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take that and I'm going to run. And that's when I booked those first 2 trips with Under 30.
So when you had those, let's talk about the first trip to Bali.
Yeah.
What role did that play in kind of this transformation you had in going from typical corporate career life and then suddenly you're seeing a whole new side of the world, and just what did that do for your personal and physical and mental side of your life?
Oh my God, dude. It changed everything for me. So, um, God, their culture is so beautiful. The people are so amazing, and seeing that they don't have a ton of stuff. They aren't bombarded with these expectations to like succeed and gather all the things throughout life, and they were so happy, and there's almost a non-existent crime rate there, which also blew my mind. And it's because the culture is so karmic driven. So it's basically just like do good, be a good person, because if you don't, not only does that affect you, it affects your family as well. And so just kind of seeing how that entire mindset played such a huge role across the culture was beautiful, and everyone's so happy. And I'm like, damn, like these people are way happier than the vast majority of people that I know in the States. Like, why? Why is that? Because they don't have a ton. And it's a very like community centric culture as well. So they live typically in family compounds. So everything is done together, like even weddings. It's not like here where it's usually the bride's parent that pays for it. The entire community comes together to like hand make all of the decorations. And like everybody donates to a fund for anything else that's needed for the wedding. Like the entire community cooks for the wedding, and that goes for any celebratory event that they have. And I was just like, man, this is where it's at. Like maybe, not to say we're like doing it wrong. I don't want to offend anyone, but like maybe we're doing it wrong. So yeah, it kind of just like shook things up a bit for me and made me realize that the way of life that I had always known may not necessarily be the right way or the only way, especially from a belief system, if we want to dabble into that conversation, because I come from a very, very, very Christian upbringing and background, and being so heavily exposed to another religion made me question everything on that end as well. So, and that's a whole another conversation.
Let's dabble in that a little bit,
Let's
though.
do it, dude. Let's come on.
So, yeah, when you're raised a certain way and these things that for most of your life you've never questioned and just accepted as fact, which I think you kind of have to do it to get through the first period of your life.
Oh, yeah, that's what you're taught to do.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily bad, but when suddenly you start questioning these and seeing other ways of life or religion, and how do you, when you first start realizing this, like what's that internal debate going on with you?
Well, it's funny because it meant even more for me because at the time I was still leading worship at a church. So like I'm the girl up there behind the microphone singing every Sunday, right? So it meant even more for me just than like questioning my own belief system. It was like, oh shit, like can I even go up there on Sundays and like be up there talking about and singing about something that I'm not 100% sure is what I like believe anymore. Like, oh my God, what do I do? But it, as far as how it felt, I don't even remember ever feeling scared about it. It was almost like angry for a bit. I was like, why hadn't I ever questioned anything before this point in my life? Like, why have I always accepted everything as fact? And again, I'm not saying that there is one right answer, that something is right, that something is wrong. What I do know is that there's not one right answer. And I think it would be to everyone's benefit to kind of accept that and question things, not even just from a religious standpoint, just all things. Maybe none of us know what we're doing.
That sounds pretty accurate.
Like when I say maybe, I'm trying to say like we for sure like do not know what we're doing. None of us. No one. We're all just kind of winging it, right?
Yeah, I think like a little less serious note, but when you're a kid and you look at adults, you're like, oh, they definitely know what's going on. Like they have things figured out.
Totally.
Then you get like a little bit older and you're like, oh man, I thought I'd know a lot more by now. And then you look at the people who are 10, 20 years older, you're like, oh, by then, oh, I'll have stuff figured out for sure. Then you
No.
get there and it's like, oh shit.
I feel like that's the entire game of life is getting to the end and realizing like you still know nothing, and that's the beautiful part of it. Just roll with it. Yeah, I've met a point where I'm hyper skeptical of anyone that is overly confident in anything.
Yeah, it's
You
like you
know,
said, usually there's no one right answer for things,
for sure.
but you start questioning everything and getting into, well, what's what and what actually matters. It can be a scary thing for sure.
Absolutely. And so the conclusion I kind of came to there was just like experience, like experiencing as much of this incredible world as I possibly can while I'm still here.
So was that trip one of the really first times you started questioning some of this stuff?
I mean, I definitely did a bit in college, but it's such a comfortable place when that's how you grow up. So even though like I went through my like phase, if you will, but that's a terrible word because it's not just a phase, but when I like started questioning things as soon as I graduated and kind of started following that checklist, if you will, I fell like right back into that level of comfort because it's so much easier to default to what's comfortable instead of actually going down that path of questioning because that's hard, dude. That's uncomfortable. That shakes stuff. It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you begin addressing some, like, because yeah, that is hard and scary and you gotta kind of go against the grain a little bit. So like, any advice on starting to question some of that stuff and just like, if that's
Yeah.
even possible, or is it just such an internal one-to-one type thing?
It's a definite one-to-one type thing, but what I will say is that that little bit of truth that like inside, and if it feels uncomfortable to like listen or like even entertain the thought of whatever that little truth is saying, then you know that that's the truth for sure because it shouldn't be comfortable. But whatever that truth is, whatever that is tugging at you, follow it. Even if you're scared about what people are going to think, people are going to say, like if your parents or your family are going to be disappointed in you, do it, and live that. Because I definitely started to, and I knew like my mom was going to question everything. I was like, oh my God, I love my mom dearly, but like, how do I handle that? How do I even navigate that whole thing? Because I don't want to disappoint my mom, but I really need to kind of dig here and follow this path. And it's funny because here we are a couple years later, and now she's doing her own questioning. She's doing a bunch of research on her own, reading books into different philosophies and ways of living. And now she's super into travel. And as a matter of fact, she's all excited. She wants both of us to go to Bali this summer and kind of experience all of those things herself. So it's really beautiful once you start living that truth. The people that you thought you would maybe hurt or disappoint, you actually sometimes end up being an inspiration for. So yeah, follow that truth.
That's really cool. It's like, even though you were worried about her being disappointed, it's kind of like you sparked that in her as well. And now
For
you're
sure.
both able to grow from that.
Yeah, and that's a big lesson I've learned that has helped tremendously over the past few years. And I realized it's something that held me back in lots of things for a very long time, was just like honestly, truly not giving a single fuck about what anyone else thinks.
It's hard to do, but It's true.
It is, but do it.
Okay, so you did Bali. How long was that trip or that experience?
7 days.
Okay, so you did that, got back. What, like, getting back from a trip like that, I think is almost harder than going in a way.
Oh.
Like, how do you get back from that? You have this transformative experience. Like, now what are you thinking? What's going on? And, what are you doing day to day?
I think the only thing that kept me from going into a massive just like slump of post-trip depression at that point was knowing that I already had Iceland scheduled for a couple of months after that. So I knew that I had another experience coming. But yeah. So it was after coming back from that trip that I was like, oh, well, don't really know that I can keep doing the worship leading thing. Feel like I should probably step back from that. If I'm going to honor truth, I don't want to stand up there singing about something that I'm not 100% confident in. So that was a definite change that I came home and made. Then had that next trip booked. So that saved me from just being completely and totally lost and sad.
So you had booked 2 before you went on 1?
I did, dude. So after I left Liberty Mutual, I got that severance package. That was the first thing I did.
Had you
Booked
heard of
2 trips?
Did you hear the company before? Like, how did you come across them and decide to do these group trips instead of kind of your own trip?
Yeah. So funny story. So I was a singer-songwriter as well. I've lived many lives. And my drummer's sister-in-law was always traveling around the world, and we would have rehearsals at his house, and she would come back. And whenever she was in Austin, she would stay at their house. And I just remember her coming back from this trip. I knew she had been in Iceland or Ireland, I think, actually. And so she was like trying to keep herself awake to adjust back to the time zone. And I was like, what do you do? Like, what do you do for a living? Because your life sounds pretty rad. And she was one of the first ever trip leaders for Under30Experiences. So that's how I even found out about the company. And so I just always had that in the back of my head, and just remember checking out the website and being like, oh, this is awesome. I don't have to plan anything. Like, sounds fantastic. So yeah, once I got the means to do it, I jumped all up on it, and I picked Bali and Iceland because I wanted to put myself as far out of my comfort zone as possible in both directions. So I did.
So was Iceland, did you feel like as big of a transformational type thing there? Like, how was that trip then a few months later?
I think since like that little flame had already been lit, it wasn't quite as intense for me, but it's still, I mean, it's unlike any place I've ever been, especially from a landscape point of view. I don't think that I got to dive into the local culture quite as much as I did in Bali. But yeah, that's like a whole nother different belief system. So then being exposed to that, it was just like shook me even more. I'm like, oh my God, I know nothing. I really, really know nothing. I have a lot to go back and evaluate again. But I knew that I vibed so much more intensely with Bali, always have. So.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I like lived there like in another life. I don't know. It feels like home. It's just this beautiful like container that just holds you when you're there. It's epic. Yeah.
I'm curious, what parts of Bali did you go on the experience?
So I spent, or on that trip, we spend the majority of our time in the Ubud area. So we're more in the jungle, and the place that we stay is actually in the jungle outside of Ubud. And we stay in this village of like 250 people. And so we're actually like staying at this place that's in the village. So you walk out every day and you're immediately just like immersed in culture, whether you want to be or not. You're in the village. But we do like an actual tour of family compounds and get tons of opportunities to ask questions about, daily lifestyle. And quite often we actually get to experience a ceremony, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Balinese culture, but they celebrate everything. And I'm not over exaggerating there. Like, there's a celebration once a year for items that help them live their daily lives, like appliances, silverware. Shit you not. Like, they hand make these ornaments and things. They do it for their vehicles too. So you'll see all of these little decorations on cars. They do it twice a year for animals. So like for their dogs and things like that, they literally have an entire ceremony for animals, for appliances, or for whatever they're celebrating that day. And it's beautiful. They're so grateful.
What, did you see any of those celebrations when you were there?
Yes. I can't remember what celebration was going on the very first year, but I've been back every summer since then. So I've been able to be a part of several ceremonies since then.
Oh, so you've gone back the last 2 years now after that?
Yeah. So
Whoa.
funny story. So remember how I said I was hired by Under 30 for a marketing position, right?
Yeah.
So when I actually got that offer, I was doing a 2-week road trip with another friend that I met through the Under30Experiences alumni network. She was a health coach and was just starting her business around the same time I was starting my fitness company. And so we went on this epic like camping road trip from LA to Denver. And so I had gotten my offer from Under 30 Experiences, accepted, knew that I wasn't going to be starting for like another month and a half. But then while we were on that road trip, I got a call. They knew I had been on the Bali trip before. And I guess the person that they were going to have lead that trip for that particular summer had just left the company. And so they were kind of scrambling to find someone. They're like, hey, Lindsey, do you want to start early and go lead trips in Bali? I was like, is this real life? Freaking course I do. Like, I'll find the nearest airport and go home right now. So that's kind of what happened. Yeah. Came home, packed, left within 36 hours.
So,
yeah.
So that was your first time leading?
Yeah.
And so what was that like, being in that position as opposed to just kind of going along with the group?
Amazing. Like I said, since that place had such an intense impact on me the summer before, and I'd been on the trip, so I knew the trip. And of course, I got to go out there and review everything with our local trip leader that we have there in Bali beforehand. But it was just like being able to usher people through an experience that impacted me so intensely was just like the greatest gift that life could have ever provided me. Truly. So I got to spend about a month out there. That was last summer. And then I did it again this past summer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
It's amazing. It's my favorite. I'm super, super biased about that trip.
Understandable.
Yeah.
It's a cool place.
It is.
Okay, I've got to ask this. I'm sure you get it all the time.
Do it.
Do you have to be under 30 to do an experience with the company?
You do not. So we target ages 21 to 35. However, we don't even have necessarily a hard stop per se at 35. If you are over 35, we just kind of let you know, like there are solid chances that you'll be traveling with someone that maybe has never traveled before. So just kind of be aware of that. But we have a very hard start of 21. We're not out here trying to babysit.
Fair.
Yeah.
So are most people who go on these trips, are they people who've like never been out of the U.S., or are they like, what sort of people do you find come on these trips?
Dude, it totally depends. I'm still trying to figure it out. We get such a wide array of people. So I actually, I led trips for a good 6 months of this year. I left Austin in March and just got back at the end of August, early September. And that's something I was thinking about the whole time. I was like, oh my God, like we have like older people that are, when I say older, older than 35. So like 30, we had like a 38, 39-year-old who was an oncologist. So like hyper professional in the medical industry. We had a girl on the same trip who had never even taken a flight before.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And she chose her first time to ever be on a plane was to go to Ireland. And I was like, you, ma'am, are my new hero. That's amazing. That's what I'm talking about. Jump in. So you never know. We get such a crazy mix of people. We do get a lot of people in education and like medical fields. So like teachers, nurses, people that have kind of a limited time off, or they can only take time off during a certain time of the year. And so they want things to be planned for them. They don't want to have to put the extra time in to do all that themselves. So it's just easier way for them to travel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A few more like questions just about how it works in general, because I've never done one of these, but it sounds really cool, and I'm considering doing it. So, like, how big are the groups you go with? Are they kind of open to anyone, or is it like a set number of tickets or seats, I guess?
Great question. So this is another thing that really differentiates Under 30 Experiences from the vast majority of other small group travel companies, is that we are actually a small group travel company. So most of our trips are capped at no more than 18 people. And I've had trips as small as like seven or eight. And the reason that we like to keep those smaller is we are very community based. So more than just experiencing the place that we're going, we are very much about getting to know the people that you're traveling with. Like it becomes these little family pods. And we have communities here in the States. So once you've been on a trip with us, you can go to these little community meetups that we have. So it ranges anything from like a hike on a Saturday to a happy hour on a random Thursday, just to hang out with other people that have either been on trips or are interested in going on trips. So yeah, we keep the groups small so that we can actually connect, form relationships.
Okay. And so, like, is everything you do like structured? Like, is what part of your days are like, okay, this is what we're doing today, and how much of it is like, we're here for 2-3 days, go and do whatever you want?
Great question. So it totally depends on the trip. But this is something that we say at the beginning of all of our trips, like ultimately, like this is your vacation. So of course we have an itinerary set, but if there is something that you do not want to do, you don't have to do it. If there's something that you really want to do that is not on the itinerary, talk to us. Let's see if we can make it happen. So we do a really good job of kind of having that balance on all of our trips, kind of accounting for a good chunk of time that you can kind of do your own thing, or do nothing if that's what you want to do, kind of balanced with lots of different planned activities. But something else that we really try our best to do is to find things that you wouldn't be able to find yourself. Otherwise, that defeats the purpose of going on a trip with us if you could just plan it yourself, right? So, for example, in Bali, we have this river hike that we do that you can't find on Google. We like hike and boulder all through this river, and we get to the top where there's this waterfall, and then we can swim back down. But it's just cool little things like that you would never be able to find on your own.
Okay. And so,
yeah,
when, because I've looked at some of the packages, and it's like, it looks like a set price and gets you a good amount of things. So what exactly does like your money go towards when you're buying an experience?
Yeah, so everything on our trips is included other than lunches and then flights. Of course, people are flying in from different places. They want to fly in early, stay late. So that's a bit too complex to try to organize for a group. But once you arrive at the destination, what you're paying for includes everything the rest of the trip. We have a couple of trips that we have some optional activities that you can pay for. Like not everyone wants to go surfing in Costa Rica, so that's something that we take into account. So if you want to go surfing during your downtime, we organize that for you, but that's not necessarily included in the price. But for the vast majority of our trips, all of the activities that are listed online are included in that price.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you like most specifically about doing this group type trip as opposed to your own, other than having everything planned for you, which you already kind of said?
The people, it's so crazy. Because my very first trip to Bali, I made some incredible friendships. Like these people quickly became some of my favorite humans, to the point that when I went on my Iceland trip, I was really concerned. I was like, man, like there's no way this group is going to be as cool. Like I totally lucked out with my first group. Like I was just already mentally preparing myself for not connecting as deeply with people on that trip, and I was wrong. I made some even deeper friendships, people that I definitely still keep in contact with on a regular basis today. And so I think that's the other thing that I loved so much about it, was just coming away from these trips with amazing friendships, and then also contacts from all across the United States for sure. Even Canada, we attract travelers from all over the place. So knowing that if I am traveling domestically and I am going to be, say, in Colorado for a couple of days, I can link up with some people that I met in Iceland and go hang out with them or sleep on their couch for the night, you know? So you kind of become part of this much larger community.
I really like that. That's really cool
Yeah.
that you have that alumni network.
Yeah. So yeah, after you go on a trip with Under 30 Experiences, you become a part of their alumni network. And we have this huge group on Facebook. So if you're traveling somewhere or you need a recommendation for something, you just drop it in there as a question and you'll get like 40 responses easy. So it ends up being an amazing resource as well.
Are trips only open to people within the U.S.? Because I know like a lot of them right now are international, like the experiences. Are they?
Yeah.
Do you have to be from the U.S. to do these?
You don't have to be. We market really only to the U.S. just because we saw more of a need for it here, for people to help people kind of break out of their rut a little bit, show them the world, for lack of better words. You know, we tend to be one of the least traveled cultures across the world, and that's why we focus on the American millennial market primarily. But we still do get travelers from all across the globe. They find us. So.
Okay. I'm curious. So you've done 2 trips with them. You've led.
I've done 3.
Oh, you've done 3? What was your third?
I hiked the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu.
Oh gosh.
It was epic.
Okay, I want to hear about that. But before we do, so okay, you've done 3 experiences with them. You've led 3 now, or probably way more. Actually.
Oh God, I don't even know. So I was gone for 6 months. I led trips in Ireland, Italy, France, Spain, Bali, and Thailand, and several times in each of those places. So, did
you have to be like an expert on these places before leading them? Like,
no. So for most of our trips, we have a local partner. So we'll have like a local guide and a North American guide with Under 30 Experiences. So it's kind of partnered. So we have one person that's like the expert on the local knowledge, and then one person that is the expert with the North American people. So to kind of be that bridge. Yeah. So for most of them, there were a couple that we didn't have them for at the time, but it would be places like Ireland where we speak the same language. That one's pretty simple, and I had already been a few times before I led that one by myself.
Okay. So after doing these leadings and doing the trips as I guess, a guest, do you have any desire to kind of go out and try your own traveling on your like solo or with a small like 2-3 people and kind of try to plan everything yourself, or do you love this form of travel and think you're going to continue to do that?
I mean, I'm always down for travel in any form. I don't think that I would ever just stick to one way. But that being said, I don't think that I would ever just travel solo or just travel with myself and a few other people. I think the small group is kind of where it's at for several reasons. Yeah, so I think a solid mix of all of them. Of course, like while I was leading trips during my downtime, I was traveling around by myself, which I enjoy, but I love people. If you haven't kind of figured this out already, I love to talk. It doesn't go over quite as well when I'm just talking to myself all the time. So I love having someone else to talk to.
Could you go through a few more of those reasons? Because a lot of the people I've had on the podcast have been solo travelers, and they're all huge advocates of it. So I'm curious to kind of see the other perspective of group travel.
Yeah, I think for me, again, one of the main things is going to be having access to places and experiences that I would not have been able to find by myself, especially in these places that are a bit further away, Southeast Asia. So it's not like I could go on Google and find this river hike or find this village and find someone to let me go through their family compound and show me how their culture works. So yeah, I think having access to those special little things like that is one thing. Number two, of course, traveling in groups. You meet a bunch, and I don't like this term, like-minded people, because I feel like it's so vague, but truly, like if you think about it, it's other people that are wanting to do the same thing that you are. So they're probably pretty cool. So immediately putting yourself in a setting to have really cool experiences with other people that you already know are going to be pretty cool. That's another thing. So you're getting guaranteed friendships out of these. And then just like, you don't have that fear of like, oh my God, what if something goes wrong? Like, what if I get to the airport and I pay way too much for a taxi, or like there's this communication barrier and I go to the wrong place and oh my God, what if this or that happens? Just like totally eliminates any of those fears and worries. So it's easy.
So to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Do it.
Myself included, and a lot of the people who are like huge advocates of solo traveling would say that's kind of part of the adventure and part of the fun and part of the learning process of traveling is, yeah, you might get screwed over with this and that kind of sucks, but in the same way that's like, it makes the journey more, not unique, but just more exciting in a way. Maybe that's just the type of personality you need to have to think it's kind of fun.
For sure.
Kind of fun to deal with that fear.
For sure. And I would agree to an extent. Like I definitely enjoy doing those things. But there's a lot of people, especially if they have never traveled before, that stresses them out to the point that it makes them not even want to travel. They're like, screw it, I'll just never go because that's like gives me crazy anxiety. So just kind of finding that balance and helping those people usher them to and through these experiences that they wouldn't have had because they let that fear hold them back. And a lot of people, once they travel with us and they kind of get past that fear a bit, then they travel solo, which we love. Like our goal is never like only travel with us. Like we want to pull you out of your rut, give you these experiences, and yeah, like set you off and do your own thing.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, because there's a lot of people who probably, like, they just kind of blow those fears out of proportion and then they never leave. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, with with companies like U30X, and I don't know what like your competitors are, but with companies like these kind of gaining popularity and just kind of with millennials seeming to have some different values, especially when traveling, like how do you think travel is changing most right now?
There's lots of different ways to answer that. I definitely, well, it's first of all, it's becoming far more accessible due to companies like this. But it's also kind of creating a problem in some areas where we're seeing like over tourism becoming a problem because travel is so accessible now. And oh man, I just totally lost my train of thought. I was going to go in another direction. Where was I going? Dang. Because travel is so accessible over tourism. Oh, and then there's other places that have become so reliant on tourism. Once people kind of start moving on to other locations, then it's kind of leaving those places like, oh my God, what do we do? Like our economy was so heavily based on tourism, and that's all we know. So now we have to get people to keep coming here, which just creates a whole nother issue in itself. So, yeah, it's there's lots of things happening in the travel world. So I think for us, something we're constantly working on is just finding new places to go that aren't so easily accessible, so that we're still able to provide a service to people, giving them something that they couldn't do by themselves.
As a company, do you feel like there's a responsibility you have to make sure you're not adding to that over tourism or like just
big time?
Yeah.
Big time. So we have a huge sustainability policy that we kind of weave into every aspect of our trip. So, and in most of the places that we travel, we also have community projects. We never want to be necessarily a service-based organization, for lack of better words. We don't want to turn into like a mission trip company. That's not what we do. But we do partner with local communities and do kind of cultural exchanges. So in Peru, we have this little community that, I mean, they make all of these beautiful things. As a matter of fact, the bag that I'm looking at right now that I carry every single day is from there. So they make these beautiful items, but it's such a long trek for them to get to the city that they don't really ever get to sell them. And so we go into this community, we do this big cultural exchange. We help with farming. We do all kinds of stuff with them. We spend the entire day in this community and then get the opportunity to purchase any of these things from the local community to be able to help them. Yeah.
Let's talk about Peru a little bit, because I know one of your articles was titled, I Think I Love You, Peru.
I do.
And you said you did the the Inca trail hike.
Yes.
So yeah, can you tell me a little bit about Peru and why this place stood out so much to you?
Magic. It's so great. The Andes Mountains are just incredible. But I think, so, I mean, the trail itself was epic, just being nestled in these huge mountains for 4 days straight while you're trekking to Machu Picchu, was just unreal. Such a cool experience. But I think the thing that stood out to me the most is actually the little community that I was just talking about, the experience that I had there. Like, I don't think I've ever smiled so much in my entire life. I don't think that my smile actually left my face the entire time we were in the community. From the moment that we showed up, they were getting out of this van and they take us by the hand and start like dancing with us. And there's all these traditional instruments, drums and flutes being played. And that's like our welcoming, was this ceremony that you're just immediately a part of. It was just the coolest thing, and they're just so happy. Again, it all comes down to the people for me. So yeah, it was a really cool experience. But I will say the actual trek itself, like I'm in pretty good physical shape. Um, that was like one of the hardest things I've ever done,
Really?
for sure. Oh yeah.
What made it so hard?
Um, I think honestly, like living in Texas, there's almost no elevation here. And so being at such a high elevation and it's just like you're literally walking stairs 8 to 12 hours a day for 4 days straight. Um, and it's like your main goal is just to get to the next stopping point. Um, and so it was a huge physical and even more so mental challenge for me, just getting out of my own head, to be able to do that, kind of getting past my ego a bit because I was still a personal trainer at the time. So seeing these I remember there was a girl on my trip that at the beginning of it, she was like, yeah, like making a joke out of it. She was like, yeah, I walk my dog sometimes. And I was like, oh, girl, you're about to die. And I've been like training for this, right? With like a 10-pound weight vest doing these hikes. She beasted it up those mountains. And I was so mad. And so just that was like a huge opportunity for me to get past my ego a bit. And yeah, just enjoy the ride.
What dog was she walking then?
That's what I didn't ask that question in my head. It was definitely just like this little bitty dog, but it could have been a monster. I don't know.
Oh, that's cool. So are you glad you did that hike still, even though it was so grueling?
Oh, for sure. Like there's no other way to see Machu Picchu. Well, that's not true. There's many other ways to see it. But for me, I think the experience of going through that made seeing Machu Picchu even more magical.
It's almost like you earned it more in a way.
For sure.
Yeah. So when you do these just so vast experiences and so unique to this area, and you get back home, like, do you try to incorporate anything, like whether some lifestyle type things you've seen in these other cultures or mindsets you've kind of developed through traveling? Like, do you try to incorporate these back into your daily life back at home?
Big time. Big time. Um, to the point that it almost makes it a little bit difficult coming back every time, because you're so deeply held in these cultures and you start taking on bits and pieces of them. And then you come back here and it's like, oh God, here we are again with all of these things happening all the time and being worried about completely different things. So there's always a bit of a learning curve coming home and figuring out what pieces you want to keep from what you learned and what pieces you want to leave. But I think even more than what you learn from the actual cultures is what you learn about yourself. And I think I will add this to my list of things that I like about small group travel is especially if you go on these trips by yourself, you're given a very unique opportunity to be whoever the fuck you want to be. These people don't know you. So you don't have these underlying expectations to be the way you've always been and show up the way that you've always been expected to show up when you're at home. So you get this opportunity to kind of play a little bit and figure out who you really are. And maybe you react to a situation differently than what you would at home. And so it gives you this opportunity to kind of to play with that a bit, to get to know yourself even better. So then when you come home, it's even more beautiful thing to really reflect back and think about like what pieces of yourself you really liked when you were traveling and what pieces you think you might just go ahead and leave at that destination and come home a bit differently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's weird how, like, when you go travel and you see these places and all these external things, it, like, is such an introspective type thing.
For sure.
I guess it kind of makes sense because it, like we talked about earlier, it does make you question certain things, whether that's your lifestyle back home or your belief system or what you value. Just seeing it just so vividly and so explicitly in another culture, then suddenly you're just like, whoa, why don't I think that way? Or is the way I think the right way? Or it's kind of crazy just how introspective something like that can be.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what? I had a question. Oh yeah. So a lot of like the focus of under 30 seems to be around millennials, obviously with the target group of 21 to 35. Why millennials, and like how do you cater towards that market? Like do you find that they really do travel quite differently from older generations, and like do you have any idea why
Yeah.
their mission is to focus on millennials?
Yeah, for sure. So a couple of things. So we tend to be a bit more adventure based, not saying that an older crowd like couldn't hang, but um, we're finding that a lot of people are in the millennial crowd are far more into like adventure based, experiential based type trips. So more so than just going to a luxury resort and like having cocktails all day. We actually want to go experience these places, experience it like a local, for a lack of better words. And we're seeing that's a huge trend in the millennial market. And that's kind of something that we've always been about anyway. So it was just a natural emergence there. But I think originally when it started, I know the two co-founders had founded a company called Under30 CEO. And so it was targeted more to young entrepreneurs. And then it was through that that they got the opportunity to go on a trip with a group of other small or young entrepreneurs. And then they were like, oh my God, this is so much cooler than what we were doing. Like, maybe let's just focus on this. And so that's kind of how Under 30 was birthed in a very, 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 very short story. Yeah.
Is there a medium story on more of that?
Yeah.
I'm
So
curious.
one of the co-founders, Matt Wilson, went on a trip to Iceland, um, where that was like really his first big international trip where he was exposed to another culture and was like, oh my God, like other people need to see this. Like they need to experience this. And so he kind of gathered a small group of other young entrepreneurs and took them to Iceland with him. And they all agreed like this was just an epic experience. And then he was like, God, like he was working on Wall Street at the time and goes back and he was just kind of like, man, is this really what I want to be doing? Like I want new people. I want meaning. I want authenticity. I want truth. And decided a good way to do that would be to see what other kind of people would want to come on these trips. So really it just started as wanting to find a network of other really rad people, not just entrepreneurs. Like maybe there's more people around my age that want to do this. And so there's Under 30.
And now you're here.
And now we're here.
So, kind of like from Matt's story and from your earlier career and switching into this, like what level of importance do you think passion and meaning plays into your work?
100,000% of it, especially mine personally. Um, that's everything. Like, yeah. Well, were you asking from a company standpoint or me personally? I
Uh,
guess the answer is kind of the same.
you personally, yeah.
Yeah, me personally, passion and purpose is everything. The moment that I am no longer fully engaged in what I'm doing and I don't feel like I'm actually serving a purpose, that I feel like I'm just going through the motions, is the day that I won't be here anymore. But I don't see that happening because I finally found something that my personal values just perfectly aligns with. Yeah.
So, yeah, when do you feel like those have changed pretty drastically, or like they've always kind of been there and you just haven't been following them? Like what happens if those values change or shift around?
Um, yeah, I think nothing ever stays the same, right? So I think as soon as I think I've always had these underlying values, but definitely they also changed. Like my values used to be 100% wrapped around like success in the Western terms and money. And I was on a track that I was like, my goal was to retire by the time I was 35, which is laughable now because I'm not too far from 35 and I'm not retiring anytime soon. Let me tell you that. But my mindset completely did a 180 in that regard. I was like, why would I want to like waste these years of my life if I could just figure out how to fully enjoy what I'm doing and get to experience life to the fullest at the same time? Like, why would I not do that? I could die tomorrow, and then what have I worked for? That seems silly. So, yeah, I think value systems are an ever-changing thing for most people, especially as we have new experiences. We're exposed to new things. I think they will always change, and so I think life should probably change accordingly, right?
Yeah. So for these value systems, do you like do any like tangible things or practices to see like what they are and what aligns with them, or is it more just like kind of testing and kind of getting a sense of what works and going from there? Is it like, do you feel like it's kind of, I can't think of the right word for it. Yeah, I don't know.
If I'm understanding you correctly, I think definitely testing and getting a sense for, but at the same time, like over the past couple of years, I've definitely been far more focused on like a meditation practice, which I feel is kind of becoming like the whole mindfulness thing is kind of becoming, I don't know, just like overused. I don't think that people are fully understanding what all that encompasses. It's just like becoming a term that's thrown around. But yeah, definitely adopting that practice and falling like face first into the yoga community, but not yoga in the Western terms, like yoga as what it was actually created to be in the Eastern world. And through that, done a lot of self-discovery. And I think that's the best way that I've found to find those personal values, like where they really lie.
What is yoga in the Eastern world?
Ooh, man, let's do this. You ready for this ride?
Yeah.
So yoga is more than just the asana practice. So here in the Western world, we think yoga, we think, oh, we go in, we do these movements with our body, we sweat, right? So that's really just one of what we can call steps, like 8 steps to kind of prepare you for meditation, which the ultimate goal of meditation is like union with your, let's say, creator, your energy source, whatever you want to call it, whatever that is for each individual person. So it was never meant to be just this physical practice to make sure we look sexy. That's not at all what yoga is. Yeah, it has a lot more to do with the inner work.
So is that something you think the Western society could adopt, or is that just
my God,
so
yes.
far away from most people's understandings, and they kind of hear like spiritual and they're like, ooh, I'm not like that. Like,
right. I definitely think that it's something that's being slowly adopted. If you look hard enough, there are definitely studios all across the states that get it from that standpoint. Yeah, I know it sucks that term like scares a lot of people, myself included. For years, truly, people have said spiritual. I was like, oh, nope. But it truly means something quite a bit different than what we've been taught.
What does it mean to you?
For me, it's like, oh, I'm about to get real hippie on you. So for me, it's more about like this is my belief system currently, which could change in like the next year, who knows, that we're far more than just this body, that we were far more than just this body before we came on this earth. We'll be far more than just this body when we leave. And if we look at it from a scientific standpoint, energy, it's never like created. It never expires. It's always reused, right? That's what we learn in science. So if that's the truth, then ultimately we're made of things that have been here for far longer than even us as humans have been here. So just figuring out what that is, like who I actually am, like beyond this human form.
So I'm curious, have you ever done like a meditation or yoga retreat? Like a multi-day silent type thing?
I haven't done a silent retreat, but I would be totally into it. I just haven't had the opportunity yet.
Okay. Because, yeah, a lot of... I only did like a 2-day one, but I had some people on who did a 10-day silent one, and it kind of sounds similar. They're just like, when you stop getting all this external stimuli and really go deep into yourself, you just feel like there's so much more than what is now. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like you said, a little bit type of hippie stuff, but
Oh yeah, man, we can do a whole another episode on that. I'm trying to keep it like
keep it at the surface level for
for
now.
the audience. Yeah. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that something that you have like felt like for most of your life, or something you kind of maybe understood more through traveling or reading or some other resources? Like, how did that come about for you?
All of the above. So my entire life, it was always this external thing, like this God or this spirit was always this external thing that we were like reaching for. Whereas through travel and exposure to other belief systems and cultures and reading, I found that perhaps it's something that we don't have to reach for. That's already there. It's more a process of undoing, of unbecoming, if you will, to figure out what you've been all along.
So how do you practice that, if that's the correct term? Like, when
Yeah.
you have a job and you have things and you need to pay bills and get money and all these things that you kind of need to focus on in day-to-day life, like how do you merge those two worlds together?
Yeah, man, that's a perfect way to put it. Merging the worlds, having one foot in each world. Um, it's hard, and it was really hard coming back from this most recent stint of travel, especially spending the last 3 months in Southeast Asia, where it's just such a well-known thing. It's like it just is. Everyone is like raised in that culture, and then coming back here, and you're just like immediately overstimulated. Like you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh shit, I need to like work out, eat, get my coffee, go to work. Like where do I find time to meditate and to like calm down and slow down and listen? So I think it really all comes down to making it a habit, making it a practice. Meditation, that is. Yeah, the listening and the learning, of course. So seeking it out once you're back home, which I've had to do. I'm at a completely different yoga studio than what I was at before I left this time.
Okay, so you really have to be conscious of it and
For sure.
make it a priority in your day-to-day life.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's interesting because that's I try to meditate like every day as well, but there's days when you wake up and you feel like, oh, I just need to go and get started right away, and then suddenly half your day's over and you're like, whoa, what have I been doing? Like,
Yeah.
I don't even like what did I do the last 3-4 hours? Like,
Yep.
and it's weird how, maybe not weird, but how like that practice is maybe one of the first things people will sacrifice when they get busy or they have a lot going on, and even though it should be the opposite, that should be what they focus on when all that external stuff is going on. Like,
You are nailing it.
do you feel a difference on the days where like, oh, I just don't have time to do this today? Like, do you feel a difference in your mind or your body? Like,
Oh my God, yes. I have such an intense mind. That I notice it's way worse on the days that I don't make that like the first thing that I do. Absolutely, especially if I go a couple of days without making that the first thing I do. Good grief. Yeah, I get to be a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like, that's because I've been really bad lately about doing it consistently, about meditating consistently, and I've been running. I did a few half marathons, and so like on the days I run, I just feel so much better in like every regard. I go to bed and I fall asleep much easier. So now I'm wondering, like, dang, if I can notice this big of a difference just from some serious exercise, I wonder if I get into a really good, consistent routine with some meditation and things like that, if you start to notice that as well on the days where you don't do it.
For sure. And I think the easiest way to do that, because I think a lot of us are like, oh, I need to sit down and at least do this for 30 minutes. But that's like it's not realistic when you're first starting. It's just not. It's a practice. Just like you can't go out and run 13.1 miles the first time that you go run. It's just like not really how it works, right? You have to build up to that. So I think just like having that patience, it's just like consistency over time. And that goes for anything that you want to be good at, for lack of better words. But just having those realistic expectations with yourself, like, hey, I'm going to commit to like 5 minutes every day this week. I'm going to commit to 10 minutes every day this week. And then just building that over time to where it gets to a point to where, like, when you first start, 10 minutes seems like a freaking eternity. Oh my God. And then it gets to a point where like 15, 20 minutes goes by and you feel like you've only been sitting for a few. It's cool once you really start getting into it.
Yeah. Do you have any like resources or things you used maybe when you were starting that out or to build it up? Like, or is it mostly like going to a studio, and I guess that's a resource as well, but maybe in like your personal practice?
Yeah, so personal practice, I was using Headspace when I first started. I think that's a fantastic tool to use if you're brand new to the meditation practice. I think that it does a great job of just kind of explaining what meditation actually is, that it's not so much like controlling the mind as much as it is just like being observant. So it does a great job of introducing what can be very, very complex ideas and makes them very palatable for somebody that's just being introduced to it.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that is a good way to put it. Like, you just kind of have to build it up. You're not going to go out and run a half marathon on the first day, so.
For sure.
Okay, kind of switching gears. Not really, though. So when you're traveling and kind of in these periods of your life, whether you're leading these experiences well, where it's kind of different from your typical routine and day-to-day life back in Austin, how do you maintain your wellness, and whether that's physical and mental, spiritual, nutrition-wise? Like, how do you continue that and the good habits you've built up when you're in these different...
Such a good question. It's funny because, and this is something I was thinking about last week, for whatever reason, whenever I'm traveling, I'm almost better about my routine. Because I swear to God, sometimes when I'm at home, like I'll set my alarm early. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get up and run this morning. Then I'm going to meditate. I'm on point so that I don't have to worry about it after work. But it's so much easier for me to stay in my bed when I'm at home. And I know I don't need to be at the office until like whatever time. Whereas if I'm running a trip, like I know that like other people are depending on me to be somewhere at this certain point. And so like I know that I have to get this done in the morning. And so for whatever reason, like when I'm traveling, I'm so on point. Not that I'm not at home, but I'm like even more consistent when I travel. Yeah, so I think as far as like what I'm doing definitely changes depending on where I am. So I usually kind of try to mix it up. Like I will frequent yoga studios wherever I am, but I do a lot of like body weight HIIT training whenever I travel. So I don't even have to like leave my room. I can do everything right there. Yeah, meditation practice too, because it's nice to kind of change up the scenery for that a bit.
So how about nutrition-wise? Because
that one gets tricky.
Yeah, you're in a new place and they have all these new foods, and sometimes it's a lot of desserts or sweets or
Right.
things that,
You are asking the good questions right
yeah,
now, man. So that is totally for me location dependent. Southeast Asia, I had a much easier time with that, especially Bali, like piece of cake for me to eat well there. Um, some other European countries, like France, for sure, because it's like cheese and bread heavy. It's very rich food. Um, it's a bit more difficult, so I have to be like hyper conscious about what I'm doing and what I'm eating when I'm there. But at the same time, giving myself a little bit of grace, especially if I'm leading a trip. Like, I don't want to be that like girl that's being a total Nazi about her food. I don't want other people to feel like they're being judged for like eating everything on their trip. But at the same time, like reminding people if I ever am not eating a certain thing, being like, hey, this is y'all's vacation. Like, please eat all the things. I can't keep doing that all the time. That's not a sustainable way to live. Um, so yeah, just being really aware and making good conscious decisions.
easier said than done.
It's
Yeah,
like you know me.
that's what I haven't been to Europe yet, but I want to go soon, and that's one of the main things I'm worried about is like eating, because especially like Italy and France, like all the pasta and
Dude,
pizza, and it's like I know it's
here's
got to be so good.
it is okay. What blew my mind about Italy though, because I was so scared about going there because there we go to a lot of these really tiny towns, which are incredible. They're beautiful little places. But I was talking with our Italian trip leader, and I was like, dude, I'm just gonna go find a salad. And he laughed at me, and I was like, what? He was like, you're not gonna find a salad here. And I was like, what do you mean I'm not gonna find a salad? He was like, have you seen anywhere that sells a salad in this town? I was like, well, I'm gonna go find it. I shit you not, the closest I found to a salad that day was a veggie pizza. Yeah, so some of these little places, it is what it is. It's pasta, it's pizza, it's gelato, and there will be like 10 gelato shops in these tiny towns, but like not one place where you can buy a salad. But for some reason, and I'm sure it has quite a bit to do with the way that they process certain ingredients far differently than we do. Um, it didn't like nothing made me feel bad. Like physically, like I didn't ever feel sick or bloated. I somehow lost weight in Italy. Like what? How does that even happen? Um, so yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the science behind that one, but yeah, don't be scared to eat all the good things there.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm have a huge sweet tooth, so
Oof,
those gelato shops might be in trouble.
do it.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about your experiences working with Under 30.
Yeah.
I'm curious on some of the other stuff you've done other than the experiences and leading those. So, like when you're back in Austin, and I think Catherine said that you're working on building community, and you said marketing as well.
Yeah. So when I was originally hired, it was for a marketing position. So I was doing what Kat is doing now. So running the blog, social media, like promotions, graphics, videos, all those things, which I still dabble quite a bit with the graphics and videos and stuff. I just love doing the creative end of stuff. But yeah, so now I'm doing quite a bit more with our community and also building out our affiliate program. So working with influencers, trying to be just like really strategic about who we're working with on that end. Because we aren't like there's so many travel bloggers, as you know, and like influencers with all these followers, and like that's cool, but is that really like who we are? So it's been a very interesting process navigating those waters, trying to find someone who we would have like similar audiences with, but is also cool, like down to earth, not egotistical, which hate to say it, but it's been a real struggle to find the right people to work with on that end. But so that's one thing I'm doing. But the other big,
Sorry,
go
real
ahead.
quick.
No, yeah.
What do you mean by building community?
Okay, so that's exactly what I was about to talk about next.
Okay,
So
perfect.
Yeah, so like I kind of alluded to earlier, so we have a huge alumni network here in the States. Um, and we have all of these little community meetups. So we have, I think we're pushing like 40 communities now across the States in different cities, different major cities around the States, which is where we have those like happy hours and hikes and like get together and do fun stuff. But what we're doing now in 2019 is we are hosting 6 major weekend events, which you and I kind of talked about earlier, which are kind of like emergence of these little meetups that we have with an actual under 30 experiences trip. So doing weekend events like we're doing a ski weekend at Hunter Mountain in New York in January, or doing a food and wine tour in Chicago in March. Or I know we're doing like a mountain weekend in Colorado, or we're doing, it'll be next November, so about a year from now, we're doing like a huge under 30 alumni family reunion. So it'll be like an adult summer camp type thing here in Austin.
Whoa.
So everybody can fly into that and just come hang and act like some clowns and get together for the weekend. So yeah, just really, because we've had a strong online presence with our community for years. Like I talked about earlier, our Facebook platform that we use is a huge resource for all of our alumni. But really taking that from behind the screen and kind of getting to see people more in person, you know?
Yeah. So are these events only open to alumni, or are they?
No,
If you've never been on a trip?
Yeah, these are for anybody. So if somebody kind of has been thinking about going on a trip, but they're not real sure, want to kind of come check out the culture, perfect opportunity for that. Or if you just like don't have the means to get out of the country, but you can make it to one of our trips here, come on.
And so there's 6 in 2019.
Correct.
So since I'm in Chicago right now, like tell me about how, is it Friday to Sunday?
Yeah.
Does your money get you the same sort of things like tickets to these events or meals at the restaurants and accommodation?
You got it. Yep. So accommodations, tickets to events. There are a couple of trips that we're going to make a few things optional just because it makes the most sense. Like maybe not everyone wants to go rock climbing. So there will be a couple of things that will be optional just like on our normal trips. But for the majority of them, like I know for sure the Chicago Food and Wine Tour, like the whole wine tour, the whole food tour, like all those tickets are included. Accommodations are definitely included. Meals are included. Yeah. So just like a trip, man.
That's really cool. Do you think that are these kind of like a testing ground for potentially opening up some larger experiences in the US?
Maybe. Yeah, so
Testing the
we're
waters.
definitely dipping our toes in that. But for this year, we wanted to make sure that we really kept it community focused. Our community is so rad, and they've been asking for things like that for a long time. So we wanted to, kind of provide them what they've been asking for. So, and kind of giving them first dibs on access because we are capping these just like we would a normal trip. So most of them are capped around the 20-person mark. So making sure that they at least kind of hear about it first. But I'll say if you keep an eye on our community page on our website, so under30experiences.com/community, right there at the top, you can see all of the locations and dates for those under 3-day trips is what we're calling them. And it also shows the release dates on there. So as long as you keep an eye on the release date, set yourself a reminder to register as soon as it pops up.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at those right now. So New York is already sold out.
Dude, it sold out in 4 hours.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have like 27 people on the wait list. So we were going to wait and release the other ones kind of at the same time, we're like, maybe we should start releasing those before the end of the year. So,
Wow. Okay, so I'm just going to read these
yeah.
off too so people know. So New York was the first one that's sold out. And then you got Chicago, Food and Wine Tour, Colorado Mountain Weekend. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
California. Oh gosh, California Beach Weekend.
Yeah, man.
Do you know
San
where in
Diego.
Cali that is?
San Diego.
Oh, sweet.
Yep.
Then Georgia for a camping trip, and
Mm-hmm.
Austin for a family reunion.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm gonna maybe do the Chicago one since I don't have to buy a plane ticket.
That would be so fun. So I'll actually be at all of them. So I'll be kind of the trip leader staffing those this year.
Okay, cool.
So I'm excited.
Sweet. So what other, do you know any other like sort of expansion type things you guys are looking at? Like do you know how many experiences you have right now? And like, I'm sure are wanting to grow some of those and find other places throughout the world. Like, how are you trying to do that, but also not grow too fast at the same time?
You are asking all the right questions today. So we have, if I'm not mistaken, 26 different trips right now. We do have, I think, 2 more that we'll be releasing in 2019. So, I mean, every year we're constantly releasing new locations. And we actually field our alumni network for that. So we aren't just like picking destinations out of thin air based on where the masses are wanting to go. We really cater to our community. So we actually ask them where they want to go and try to build off of that. So we actually have a guy that's in product development that his like sole job is to kind of seek these places and partners and vendors out and put these epic experiences together. So yeah, we will have a couple more for you in 2019. That's all I can say on that.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you know this or not, but like, what are like some of the main challenges you have to deal with when trying to get these like trips together? You know, are you having to talk with the government of these places? Are you having to get special visas, or like, what is?
You were asking
Yeah,
all the good stuff, man. So yeah, we definitely do have to do that. But we partner with a lot of local companies there. So I know in Peru, our Peruvian trip leader owns another like company in Peru that handles everything with all of the like the visa situation, the permits for hiking. So that's something that he's very well versed in. So it's not something that we have to worry about separately. And that's something we rely heavily on our local partners for. Same thing in Brazil, because that's a special visa situation in itself. So most things like that, we try not to let them like deter us from creating a trip if we can find a good person to work with there and just kind of solve the problem if the destination's worth it. So I think some of the other main things that we run into, just trying to keep things at a reasonable price point. Like our goal has never been to just like make foot overhand, like tons of profit, like be this money hungry corporation. That's like the exact opposite of why we even started, right? So it's really just to make travel accessible and affordable to young people. So a snag that we often run into is just making sure that we can do everything that we want to do, keep it to our standards, but keep it at a reasonable price point. So it takes lots of work.
Do you know if you've like faced any fight or backlash against some of these countries? Like, is there any reason why they wouldn't want you coming in?
You know, I haven't heard of us having any issues with that. But that also very well could have happened at some point, and I just wasn't brought into the conversation. But now I'm curious, and I want to go back and ask. So, so I'll find out and I'll let you know.
All right.
But yeah, not that I've heard of.
Okay. I don't know.
Not
like,
yet.
yeah, I'm trying to think of why. Like, you're bringing that country more business, kind of. So.
For sure.
But, Okay, I want to kind of get back to some of the marketing stuff because I'm really interested in that landscape right now. Like, one of my friends is actually in search engine marketing and social media marketing, and he was talking about how he thinks like Google AdWords and some of that type like paid marketing for searches. He thinks that's pretty much dying out, and he thought the future was influencers. Obviously, just one man's opinion, but and obviously on Instagram or Facebook, you see how big these influencers have really become, and doing partnerships with companies and doing their own personalized ads, and like it's interesting to see, is that actually the future of marketing? Like, how much sway do these people have? And is it like, what's been your experience with that so far? I know you said kind of dealing with the egos has been tough, but
Here's what I'll say. Like, I know it plays a role, of course. But what I do know, especially just from because the marketing nerd in me couldn't ask these questions while I was leading trips, just like we had so many new travelers this year. I think on through my last 6 months leading trips, I'd say like upwards of 80% of my travelers were new travelers. They weren't returning alumni.
whoa,
And so I was constantly asking, I was like, where did you guys hear about us? And so many, I didn't have one person say, oh, no, that's a lie. I had one girl say Instagram, but she somehow like found our account and started following us. So that wasn't even through an influencer. But the majority of our new people found us on Google. Like they were Googling either like travel, solo travel, young travel, or were searching a specific trip and we popped up. So, and I can't credit that to paid ads because we don't do like paid Google AdWords. I can credit a lot of that too is our amazing marketing guru, especially with SEO, Kat, has done a fantastic job on the back end with that aspect of marketing. So just taking time. It took a couple of years to get everything set up, but yeah, I think just the natural organic searches has done us a lot of good this year.
yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is most of your marketing paid or organic? But sounds like you
Organic.
just answered that. Yeah.
Yeah, that, and then I mean it's a lot of word of mouth still.
Interesting. So, other than that, like, is there one specific area you guys are really focused on, or is it mostly like just keep building community, trying to get that word of mouth going, and just, or are you like, because obviously with technology, the marketing landscape has changed so much, like,
For sure.
are you trying to get into that, or just kind of like take it slow and make sure it's the right thing for you guys?
That's what's most important than anything else. Just taking it slow, making sure that it's the right thing for us. I mean, we've had a presence on social media for quite some time. It hasn't been a necessarily like a primary focus by any means. I think we will forever continue to keep community at the forefront of everything that we do. Just because, I mean, people are so much more important than pushing a bunch of trips. Like we love our people, and that was really at the core of creating this entire company, was just like wanting to meet other cool people, right? So making sure that we never lose sight of that, and then kind of letting the cards fall where they may after that. But that being said, I did allude to our affiliate program that we're about to launch pre-Black Friday. So it's definitely something that we're starting to dabble with. It's just, again, being very careful with who we partner with.
Makes sense. So wait, so what's this? So you said you're launching this pre-Black Friday of this year?
Yes.
So can you tell me some more about that? I'm interested.
About Black Friday or about the affiliate program?
Both, if you can.
Yeah. So the affiliate program is really just us partnering with influencers in the travel realm, especially obviously millennial travelers. So offering compensation for any trips that are purchased through your unique code or your unique link that we would provide you. But we're launching that alongside our Black Friday deal, which we do every year. But this year we're kind of upping the ante a bit. So this year, what we're offering is, so when you purchase a trip in full between like starting on Black Friday through the following Sunday, so it's a three-day sale, you get $400 off of the regular price of any of our trips that are $2,000 or less. And then we're actually offering $500 off of our bigger ticket items that are $2,000 or greater.
Whoa.
So
What?
to put that into perspective, like if you were to purchase one of our like starter Costa Rica trips, which if I'm not mistaken is like $845 or something like that right now. If you were to buy that trip in full, you could get it for $445.
Wow. And
Uh-huh.
these
So-
for specific dates of the trips you have to take?
No. Nope.
Just all the available ones.
Yep.
All right. So
So-
wait, what are the ones more than 2,000? What trips are those?
So those are a lot of our extended trips. So our Ireland, UK. So we do Ireland, Scotland, and London. I know that one is over. I know our New Zealand
Ooh.
would be in that docket as well. And I can't remember. I can pull it up and see. I can't remember how much our Galapagos trip is.
While you're looking at that, is there one trip that you have not been on yet that you really want to do?
There's a couple.
If you can choose one or two.
Yes. So I want to do New Zealand so bad. Oh my God. Yeah, I want to do New Zealand really bad, and I want to do Brazil really bad. I want to go everywhere, but our New Zealand trip just looks amazing.
Do you do both the North and South Island for that? Do you know?
I think we just do South, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I should probably, I don't know, look before I say things like that. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it's primarily South.
Okay, cool.
That's like one of our 10-day trips.
Yeah, I think you need 10 days in New Zealand at least.
For sure, if you're flying that far, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Dang. That's awesome. I don't know what to ask now. I feel like we've covered a lot.
We have. This is fun.
We've been all over the place.
All over. I told you, ask me anything, I'll tell you.
So yeah, is the Black Friday the only sort of big promotion you guys do throughout the year, or do you do any other special times that you know of, at least at the moment?
Good question. So we usually do 2 or 3 a year. Black Friday being one of those, and Black Friday is definitely our biggest, for sure. So we'll do some other random like pop-up ones throughout the year. But yeah, Black Friday is for sure our biggest and our best deal. Like it doesn't, like I can guarantee it does not get better than that.
Okay. When does that start again?
So let's see, Thanksgiving is the 22nd this year, so that's Friday the 23rd.
Okay.
And
So
we'll go
it literally
through.
starts on Black Friday.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
We do open it up early to our alumni. We always open up sales early to them, just kind of as a thank you for being so rad. But yeah, so Black Friday to the masses will begin at like 12:01 a.m. on Friday the 23rd. So yeah, so if alumni don't pick through all of the seats, I would highly suggest trying to like stay up if you can and try to snag any available seats that you can as early as possible.
Sounds a little bit easier than standing outside of a store for 6 hours.
Dude, are you kidding me? Yes.
Have you ever done that?
And like, no, absolutely not. Like, there's nothing I've ever physically wanted bad enough in my life to do that. Hard no. But I would so do it for a trip. It's just I have no problem spending money on travel, but like, yeah, experiences over things, man.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's another thing that millennials are more focused on.
For sure, which I
think
love.
maybe I got that from one of your articles, actually. Did you talk about that
Chances
in
are
one of your
strong.
articles?
Probably so. At some point, I'm sure that has been something I've discussed. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll have a few more questions and then wrap this up. Try to keep it under the 2-hour mark for the sake of the listeners.
Cool.
So
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry, and you're welcome.
Yeah, sorry and you're welcome. One of the things you talked about on the post-trip blues article, I really like that. Just like dealing with coming back home, because I think that's one of the parts that no one really addresses too much. Can you expand at least on the point where you said, like, take the time to process when you get back, whether that's through writing or meditation or whatnot? Can you kind of expand more on that and any of the other points you made as well?
Yeah, for sure. So something that was massively helpful for me this time was not letting people know that I was home yet. Especially when you've been gone for an extended amount of time. As soon as people know that you're home, they want to catch up. They want to hear about all of your travels, which is great. I love talking about it. But it's also it can be a really drastic change coming back home. And I think taking that time to really settle back in before you have to be too terribly social again is super important. And also just making sure that you've kind of like really thought through a lot of the experiences, which for me, writing helps tremendously with that. Because even though we think that we'll remember all of these little epic experiences that we had throughout your travels, they can be really easy to kind of forget. So I like to always come home and make sure that I at least am jotting down notes of like all the little things that I want to remember forever. And kind of like we were talking about earlier, just like taking note of some of the ways that you might have changed based on some of those experiences that you've had, and really figuring out how to integrate those back into your daily life before you're thrown back into the daily life that you knew before. So giving yourself time to like make a conscious decision of like, I am not going to react the way that I used to react to this certain situation anymore. Because if you don't have that internal conversation with yourself and seriously make that decision, the chances of you slipping back into old habits are pretty strong. So I think it's super important to take that time to process.
Is that just something like, because that can be kind of hard to not tell anyone you're back? Maybe for like I feel like that's like, oh, when were you coming back? Did you just like lie about that, or did you just like, how did you get away with not letting anyone know?
Yeah, so it's funny because the people that knew me would message me because they were like, we haven't seen you post anything on Instagram in the past few weeks. You're home, aren't you? I was like, thank you for paying attention. Yes, I'm definitely home. So, I mean, there are like my mom. There were a couple of people that I definitely did let know that I was home. But yeah, if people ask, I'd be like, I'll be home by this date, that's not a lie. If I'm home before that, then that's still by that certain date. So giving myself a little buffer time,
Yeah, that makes sense. If someone asks like, oh, are you home yet? Would you be like, yeah, but I need a few days before I'm doing anything. Just be honest.
Absolutely.
With okay.
Yeah, true. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, truth over everything. So yeah, I'm never gonna lie if I'm specifically asked. But yeah, and for those people that are asking are the people that understand that that's what I would need.
So one of the people I talked to 2 episodes ago, his name's Dan. He said he's a huge advocate of flying or of going solo. Like his blog name is literally Dan Flying Solo. Um, and he said that he felt more lonely when he got back from traveling.
Oh, I could see that.
Is that something
I
like
could
you
so
felt
see
before
that.
too? Like,
Yeah, I think that the same thing probably applies even if I mean, probably especially if you've been traveling with a group, because by the end of the trip, you become so tight knit with these people, and then you come home and it's like, damn, like I'm no longer waking up to all of these cool people that I just met. Um, but on the flip side of that, I know with a lot of the groups, even when I was traveling as a traveler, like we would often start WhatsApp chat groups. And so I still have actually the friend that you and I have in common, Caleb, that was just happened to be on my very first ever Bali trip. We still have a fairly active group chat from 2 years ago that we'll drop notes in every now and then. Um, so I think it's probably not as intense when you're traveling in a group in some senses, but then quite the opposite in other senses. So, but at the end of the day, regardless of how you're traveling, when you come home, you're going to feel alone. Um, I say that, but for me, I guess I can only speak to my experiences. I always feel alone when I get home, just because the people that are here were not the people that I was having experiences with, or they weren't there to experience the things that I did to the extent that I did. Like even telling people about those experiences never translates the same as actually physically experiencing them. So it can be tough.
yeah, I really also liked how you said basically like really get rid of your expectations of like when you're telling people back home about your trip. That
Absolutely.
I remember that was one of the hardest things I had, not hardest things, but one of the weirdest things I dealt with was I studied abroad in Singapore in 2015, and I got back and like was trying to tell my friends about it, and like, oh, how was it? Like, it was good. It's like, oh, cool. Like, what? I just spent 4 months in another country. What do you mean, cool? Like, it.
I know. It takes everything to not get angry and be like, do you not hear me?
Yeah,
Like, yeah, expectations, man.
yeah. It's not that
Lowering
like they
them.
don't care or they don't like they aren't interested. It's just like it's like people don't know what to ask almost because you weren't there. You like, well, what was the food like, or it's just hard to understand. And I think that's really, really important in knowing, because get back and understand. Like, I'll try to explain as best I can. If they ask a lot of questions, great. If not, like whatever.
For sure. And it's funny, like you said, I've found myself having a hard time even trying to explain when and if someone is like, my mom is probably one of the only people I can think of that's usually like hyper interested and wants to hear about every experience. But even with her, I'm like, it was amazing. Like, it's really hard to break down every single thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was epic. And that's what you say.
Yeah. So curious about, you mentioned earlier how the universe works in your favor and kind of like speaking things into existence almost.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other examples of seeing this happen in your own life other than getting the U30X job, or it doesn't have to be as large as that, but like how else have you seen this work in your life?
Oh man, absolutely. Even the story that I told earlier about like when I was still working in Hawaii and I had just played a little show with some friends out there, and I had the people who are like, why aren't you doing this full time? And I was like, I'd be stupid to quit my job. The next morning I get a call that I'm not gonna have my job anymore. Like, really? Are you serious? Like, that was a super quick turnaround. It usually doesn't happen quite that fast, but I was like, okay, universe, I see you. And I actually did pursue music on a pretty full-time basis, with the exception of still clinging on to some contract gigs after that for a while, like on a business end. But yeah. So Oh my God, I know I have so many examples of that. That's something that I should have prepared. I could have fired them off to you. Um, yeah, I do. I have some other little things, just like experiences that I've had with meeting people, um, and the universe just like really throwing some stuff in my face, like a really great, we're now like amazing friends. We had done kind of like this, we were sharing our art. So I was sharing some of my music. He was sharing some of his poetry one night. And he read this poem that was not his, but that's kind of how we like ended the night, was with this beautiful poem. And we were like, man, what a like random chance encounter that like we met. This is just like, you're a really cool human. So like the whole term of chance encounters kind of became the theme of our friendship. And I was on my flight home after when we first met a long time ago, and I was listening to this audiobook and fell asleep. And when I woke up, I shit you not, this is real. I woke up and the poem that he had read a couple of nights before was playing in my ears. It just happened to randomly be in this book I was listening to. And I was like, okay, I feel like
What?
that's important. That's weird. So then I look over, the lady next to me was reading this magazine article, and the title of it, I'm again not making this up, swear on everything that's happened. I've told the story 1,000 times. The title of her article was Chance Encounters. It took everything for me not to just like completely freak out. So I was like, okay, universe, I know you're telling me something. I don't know what it is quite yet, but those are like two things that have been spoken in the past week, and here they are being played out in real life. That's strange.
That's
So
so
the power
crazy.
is real. Uh-huh.
I was gonna
Uh-huh.
ask
Uh-huh.
like how much of that is just coincidence, but like that's too freaky.
Same. Yeah. I literally just started laughing out loud. I was like, okay. That was one of those things I documented for sure.
Jeez.
Yeah. So it's real, man. It's little things like that that kind of make me believe personally that there's something more out there. I don't know exactly necessarily what it is. Think it's called 1,000 different things, but I think it's all the same.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Okay, final question, then we'll wrap this
Hmm.
up. Is there like one or two main things throughout your travels you've learned and really kind of solidified in your values or your beliefs that you're not sure you would have learned otherwise?
Um, yeah. I think number one for me, is that I know nothing. I know nothing. And just like I kind of said earlier, I'm hyper skeptical of people that are very matter of fact and are like way overconfident, especially in like a certain belief or something. Um, I've become the same way about myself. So just like constantly remembering that I know nothing, like always being open to new experience, new opportunity, um, new ways of thinking, even if I think something is stupid or silly, like Iceland, they like have this whole thing about fairies, and it's easy to be like, that's stupid, but like, hold up, do I know that? Like, how do I know that there aren't fairies living in that little thing? Like, I don't know that. So I know nothing. Um,
In a positive way, you know nothing.
yeah, yeah, in a very positive way. Don't get me wrong. I know all the things, but I know nothing. um, and then I think it's really helped me realize that like I'm gonna get hippie on you again, but like everything and like everyone that we encounter is either a lesson or a mirror. So as we're like having these different encounters with people, it's either like reminding us of something that we need to embrace about ourselves, that we love about ourselves, or like if we find ourselves getting super frustrated with a certain individual, like find that's usually a you thing. So it's helped me be a lot less judgmental, a lot more open and loving with everyone that I meet.
Is how did you start to recognize that?
Um, I don't like when was I originally introduced to that kind of philosophy or It was probably somewhere in
maybe.
Bali across the
Yeah,
years.
just like when did you start realizing like, oh wait, this is actually like something I need to deal with. It's not really anything this
Yeah.
person's doing, but like cuz that's not an easy thing to understand and
Oh,
like
it's not.
accept.
It's not. Yeah, it all starts with like owning your shit, which so many people have a really, really hard time doing. And I'm absolutely not perfect at it all the time. I have to constantly remind myself, like, oh, no, that's you. Chill. Um, but I'm sure, like, just the original idea was probably somewhere in my travels in Southeast Asia. Um, but I think it really all comes down to kind of believing a little bit more in the philosophy or the idea that we are all interconnected. So if we are all like the same or from the same thing, then it would make sense that we are all reflective of each other um, in either a positive, negative way, whatever that may be. So yeah. Did that
Love
answer
it.
your question? Did I
Yeah,
answer?
no, it
Okay,
did.
cool. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Um, I'm glad, like, just the power of travel is incredible. I know it kind of sounds a little cliche and like, oh yeah, you did a trip and changed your life, like, but
Right?
it
I know.
really
I'm like, no,
can.
but for real. I know.
Yeah, it's so cool. And yeah, like we say, it forces you, one, out of your comfort zone, and two, it forces you to kind of question what you know and your beliefs and everything, which is so important.
Over and over and over again with each trip.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And yeah, you definitely need to be reminded of it. Like, you get back home and you kind of get back into the swing of things and daily life, and then suddenly you're like, oh, wow, I haven't really thought about this in a while.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So get out there, travel, question everything.
Yeah. High five to that.
Yeah. But is there anything that I haven't asked or we haven't discussed that you want to bring up?
No, I mean, I think we've touched on all the things. This has been super fun. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you for coming on so much. This has been terrific. Any final words or parting wisdom to our listeners?
Just do it. Just go. Like whatever's holding you back from wanting to travel, whether it's with a group, by yourself, with a couple of friends. Just do it. If you have any fears about going to a specific place, or any language barriers or anything like that, then definitely consider group travel. There's always something to kind of overcome those little fears, but definitely just take the leap, do it. That's all.
Do it. You heard it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on here. I'm really glad that Catherine was able to make the introduction for us.
Yeah,
And,
me too.
Yeah, so thank you, and thank you everyone else for listening. And where can people reach out if they want to ask a question, whether about something personal or under 30 or, best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, and I am an open book. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to me. If you want to shoot me an email, you can do that at Lindsey, Lindsey, at under30experiences.com. That's under30experiences.com. Shoot me a note, and I'm happy to always hop on a call or whatever. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Lindsey Dukes. Be happy to chat.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you. And until next time. Hey, everyone. Lee here again real quick with the question of the episode. Our conversation today hit on quite a wide range of topics, so I'm curious to know, what was your favorite quote or lesson from our conversation? Head to edgeofcomfort.com/EOCP17, that's the number 17, and leave your answer in the comment section at the bottom of the post. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to reading your answers. Cheers!